Hereby call this open portion of our General Purpose and Administration Committee meeting to order, held Monday, February 5th, 2018 at 1:30 p.m. I'd like to ask everyone to please rise for a moment of silence. Please be seated. Okay, we start off item number 5, dealing with the matters from a closed session. I have moved by Councillor Kett, seconded by Councillor Guido, that Peter Russell be appointed to the Accessibility Advisory Committee, that Penny Weiger be appointed as an alternate to the Committee of Adjustment, that Joanne Coopers be appointed as an alternate to the Committee of Adjustment, Property Standards and Animal Services Committees, that David Leroy be appointed to the Heritage and Museum Advisory Committee, and that the remaining vacancies continue to be advertised until March 30, 2018. Any questions on that? Seeing none, all those in favor? Carried. Next item we have is disclosure of pecuniary interest, nature thereof, for the open session. Seeing none, next is announcements from staff and council. Starting off with Councillor Kett and then Councillor Somerville.
Thank you, Mayor. It's nice to know that we have National Carpooling Week happening.
Councillor Somerville?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I have a couple. First of all, the Seagrave Church is having a Valentine's Day breakfast, so if any of you gentlemen would like to come up to the Seagrave Church on Saturday morning, and it's a free will offering. The men are doing the breakfast, and it's a Valentine's Day breakfast, so you can take your wife out for breakfast instead of taking her to Hanks. You can take her to the Seagrave Church, and you'll get all you can eat. That's number one. Number two is Dr. Allen is having his retirement party next Sunday from 2 to 4 at the Rotary Room at the library. So for those of you who know Dr. Allen, who's been a doctor in Port Perry for 45 years, I think, please try to attend. I'm sure there'll be a good crowd, but it'll be great to say farewell to Dr. Allen. Not great, I shouldn't say that. That's the wrong word.
Happy retirement.
It would be nice to say happy retirement, yes. Thank you.
Are there announcements from Councillor Drew?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Mr. Mayor, and Chair. Just a reminder that the Climate Change Durham Agriculture Advisory Committee Symposium is this Friday from 8:30 to 3 at the Rec Center. You're required to RSVP, so if you're interested in going, they're going to be talking about mutual problems and probable solutions. So, okay, thank you.
And just to add to that, Scugog Township is being the host community for that, and it's in partnership with Durham Agriculture Advisory Committee, Durham Environmental Advisory Committee, and many other groups and organizations. So, expect it to be a larger event. So, are there announcements from council? Announcements from staff? Seeing none. We'll move on to item 8.1 in the agenda, our presentations and delegations, and I'd like to ask Ms. Carrie Nicholson up, please, from Theatre 360. Welcome back, and just to make sure that the button is pressed on the mic, on the base of the microphone, and
Hello.
yeah, and you don't have to speak too close because it'll distort on the recording, but it's just close enough that you're picked up for the audience.
That's how long it's been since I've been here. We didn't have one of these before. Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor and Council. I wanted to start the presentation with a brief promotional video that we put together after our last year's season, and then I'll just provide a few more words afterwards. And I've also included packages for you to look through, which is mostly, again, a summary of last year's season of Port Perry Summer Theatre and some of the plans for this year's season and educational programs. But we'll start with the video, if I may. Full screen.
artist featured in the New York Times. You're nothing without me. Without me, you just disappear right into thin air, and no one would care or notice you ever were here. Right.
And that was last year's season. So, I'm going to try and read and hold the paper at the same time and the button. So, Theater 3x60 is a professional, not-for-profit, social enterprise theater company committed to enriching lives through theater on and off stage. We accomplish our goals through artistic excellence, education, increased engagement and accessibility for audiences, and the development of new theater artists and practitioners and work. Through our productions and programs, we seek to sustain ourselves and also impact, support, and change our community in the arts, social, tourism, and economic development sectors, and through broader cross-sector community engagement. This summer, for example, we will be partnering with the Lake Scugog the Lake Stewards to bring theater for young audiences to Scugog Library with an original program entitled Monsters and Milfoil. We also achieve our goals through education and mentorship, working with secondary and post-secondary placement and employment programs. Our Port Perry Summer Theater Festival is becoming an exciting vehicle and opportunity for nurturing new artists and practitioners in all facets, artistic, technical, and operational. Through the festival, we've been able to provide professional theater students with summer employment and creative projects in their field, and have given them the opportunity to expand their skills through rich opportunities in performance, direction, teaching, and management. And of course, we also present professional theater and musical productions of new, Canadian, and international works that entertain and engage our audiences, pairing quality big city theater experiences with the welcome and appeal of small-town rural hospitality. 2018 will be our fourth Port Perry Summer Theater season, and we will continue with our repertory format, offering multiple shows Tuesdays through Sunday from early July to mid-August, including 2 large-scale popular productions at Town Hall 1873. Our theatrical Cemetery Walk, Pine Grove Plots will return with new stories, and we are expanding our pre-professional performance intensive into a full apprenticeship program. Also new for the first time this year, we are offering our Summer Stages theater recreational camps in partnership with the Scugog Parks and Recreation. So I have come to council today to request that the Township of Scugog support the Port Perry Summer Theater Festival as our summer camp partner, and ask that space at the hall be available to Theater 3x60 for these camps at no cost for the equivalent of 6 days or 12 one-half days as per the current lease with Town Hall 1873. Thank you for letting me speak with you today and allowing me to introduce you to our company, and I can answer any questions, hopefully, that you might have. Thanks.
Great, thank you for the video and the update, and the caliber of the performances is excellent, and we're very fortunate to have you doing productions in the municipality, so thank you on behalf of council and the residents. Councillor Drew, you want to start off with questions?
Thank you. Very familiar with your organization, having been somewhat involved last year. But we got an email this morning giving us further information from Craig Belfry from our manager of recreation. Would you like to highlight that, or perhaps we should ask? Because when I first read your presentation, I was wondering how we could provide any help to you, and was going to direct you to the Grants Committee. However, Mr. Belfry gave us some further information about Town Hall 1873 and the arrangement that we have with them. So if you or Mr. Belfry could provide that information, it would be helpful for us to make a decision.
Okay, I will start, and then perhaps Mr. Belfry can step in if I muddle somewhere along the line. When the Parks and Recreation Department put out a call for looking for partners for camps, we responded and said we'd be happy to partner with theater camps. And in our discussion in setting up the camps, we're doing 3 weeks of camp sessions. I expressed an interest that I felt that the camp should be done at the theater if possible, because that's where theater would really be best presented, I think. And I was aware that there could be other venues through the Parks and Recreation facilities, but I felt the theater was the best place to go. And I had to factor that there would be a cost of rent to stay at the theater. So in the arrangement I've made with Parks and Rec, we have at this point factored rent into our cost, our hour per student cost that we've worked out, and that perhaps maybe Mr. Belfry can get the terminology better. In the attempts to keep my overall costs for the whole summer festival down, this opportunity of the lease, the township having access to 6 days through the town hall lease, would be a way of potentially keeping my overall costs down, and it is something that I would then take out of the fee that we're charging to the township. So there won't be a support by no rent, and then we would not charge the rent back again through that. We would revise our costs, and I had sent an email to Mr. Belfry with that, so revised cost. So I hope that's part of it. I may have lost tracking somewhere there.
Mr. Belfry, can you add?
Sure, just to support what Carrie's saying, through the arrangement, the town hall lease that we have, we're allowed 6 days of use of the town hall if we're a partner or sponsor of of event or function there. When we met with Carrie, we talked about that, and right now we're not per se a partner or sponsor with the festival as a whole, but as the summer camp. So the camp operates based on 15 registrants for the camp. We charge $170 per registrant for the week. Carrie charges her fee back to us, and it breaks down to about a 30% revenue sharing opportunity for the township. The township's only in there, we'd only be in there for 3 hours during the day, so that's why it's split into half days, and then the participants in the camp would then either go down to games down Palmer Park, or go to the pool, or go somewhere else, and we provide one staff member for the afternoon for those camps. So to us, it's a win-win situation for us, because we're providing a program with a partner. It's minimal cost to us for our camp staff, and it allows us, since we don't have anything on the horizon to use our 6 days at Town Hall 1873 this year, so we thought by offering this 3-week camp, which takes you to 12 days, then 12 half days, and then we'd obviously have to pay Town Hall 1873 rent for the 3 remaining days, but it uses up those 6 full days into 12 half days, and we can move forward and put this camp together, so we thought it was a great opportunity.
I just wanted to add that this is really going to be an exciting addition to the camps in the summer, which is already a very successful venture for Scugog Township. So, congratulations, and wish you all the best on this. Thank you.
Councillor Ketzel.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a couple of questions. Are we able to divide our 6 days in half? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do, through the mayor and councilor. That we're going to start up discussions with Town Hall 1873, and that will be our position. We have 6 days. The Town Hall 1873 is not used during that summer months, so I wouldn't foresee a problem with that.
Okay, well, that's good if we can do something about it. It's a good program. The other thing is, when will you have your brochures printed out?
We are working on all that now. I'm still finalizing my arrangements with Town Hall, and I need to finalize it's a bit of a domino effect. Until that's in place, I can't confirm my final slate. But we are doing a hard launch of promotion with the studio tour, first weekend in May. We are one of the artists on the tour, so we will be able to reach a number of arts-minded people through that weekend. We hope to be able to even start doing a soft launch by early March. Once the arrangements are done at Town Hall, we'll be able to put ticket sales up, and we will be starting to do our marketing at that point. We're actually going through a rebranding, so when next you see me, I may have another name. But for all intents and purposes, the company is legally still Theatre 3x60, and we're in the midst of just finalizing our branding logos and such now. So by 1st of March, we should see something new coming out.
Well, I would suggest that, a couple of things I'd like to suggest is maybe do a small presentation to our Economic Development Committee, and we could get the brochures put into our BIA office and our Chamber of Commerce office for distribution.
I'd be happy to do that. Last year, we worked with some of the BIA retailers and offered day of show complimentary rush tickets that we're able to make available through at least 6 of the stores. So we're planning on doing that again this year and working with more partners.
Excellent collaboration.
Councillor Watton?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This, if I may direct it to Mr. Belfry, just if we are able to split, I would assume that there will be additional caretaking required, and who do we look after that, or does Theatre 3x60 look after the caretaking, or either or? Doesn't matter. If you can answer, Carrie, please.
I'm happy to. I'm used to doing everything as it is. We are taking on the pre-program childcare, so I think the caretaking is quite that's something we can make sure the hall's in good state, and I think that was something we could negotiate through the other part of our arrangement with Town Hall.
Okay, Councillor Beck.
Thank you. Through the mayor, may I ask what the age group would be for the camps?
The camps that we're doing in Scugog Township are ages 6 to 15.
All in one?
No, we're doing a 6 to 12 range that will then be subdivided into 6 to 9 and 10 to 12 within that. So we'll have 2 instructors available, so the group itself for any given week would be subdivided into those 2 age ranges, because it's just too broad a range for theater training and abilities. I've got about 25 years of working with children in the arts, so I'm very familiar with what they can and cannot handle, and then the other age range is the 13 to 15-year range, where we will do something that's specifically targeted for that early teenage range. We have another program that isn't a part of the camp because it's a more intensive program, and that's for serious later adolescent high school students.
And question for Mr. Belfry, if you were to have a child attend this, but can they actually obviously pay the full amount but only go to the theater part and not the park?
Yes, yeah, but they'd have to pay the full amount, yeah.
Right, okay. And lastly, this is great to see in this small town. You see it in the larger towns to the south, and there's usually not that many opportunities for our young, and especially I appreciate that you're doing for the teens as well as a different venue for them to have creativity. The theater also, whether or not people are going to be using it as a launch pad for a career, which most don't, it teaches confidence and speaking in public, and that goes and travels on with whatever career. You ask adults what their biggest fear is, and most people say public speaking. So if you can actually learn that at a young age and have that confidence and know in a safe space that you can do things and be out of your comfort zone and see what you can actually create, it's an amazing domino effect as well. So I appreciate that you're bringing that to this town.
Thank you.
Any other, Councillor Somerville?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Excellent. I'm so happy for you, because I think this is such a great program. And I know you're using the Utica Hall as well for I guess it's for the adult program, is that correct?
We're using the adult hall as a rehearsal and program space, and we're sort of looking at we're trying things out, to see how well we work together, and, it's something we're starting this spring for the rehearsals and programs, so.
That's fantastic. I'm really glad you're using that, because it's a great hall and it needs to be used.
We were there last year for the Scugog studio tour, and, it's a lovely space.
Yeah.
With floor, little stage, it's quite awesome.
Perfect. Just a couple of questions. Now, did you say it's for 3 hours a day?
It would be a 9 to 12.
Okay.
So the theater component, they would have a break, snack time, and the activities we would balance, according to what the age range is. There's some theater games, some theater focus. They will be building their own presentations, so the Friday would be a modified class. Last year, we were able to put them on the stage with the lighting, and it was quite exciting for everyone to come and watch in the theater.
At the very last day, you have a little program you put together?
Yes, yeah.
That's wonderful. Now, also, if a child, especially the teens, if they wanted to go for more than 1 week, is it the same program each week, or are you changing the programs?
We are running, based on feedback we got from last year, we are offering the 6 to 12-year-old program twice, and we're only doing 1 week of the 13 to 15. It's only really our third year of working on programs, and this is exciting for us because working through the township, we've got a much broader reach to see what the interest really is. So I think this year will tell us very much what programming we need to continue doing in the future.
Now, children from out of the area can come to this?
Yes. We don't want to stop anyone from doing theater.
Perfect. Thank you.
Any other questions from council? Just a couple from myself is, if it is, say, garnering more interested parties and you have space for, what's the contingency plan for capacity, or is there, once the programs are designed and the camps and the timing and all that, is it just basically going to be maxed out and then have to deal with those changes for next year?
I would like to think that, to the best of our ability, we could accommodate any changes, and it is theater, after all, we're pretty adaptive. And if there's space and instructors, if we find early on in the registration, which I believe opens in May, we would certainly have time to accommodate our schedule, our rehearsal schedule needs for the company members and the instructors that we're teaching. We probably could still adapt within certain parameters, so we'll do our best. I would love it if we had an overflow and had to accommodate more.
That's what I just was concerned of, being, it too successful, that there's flexibility, and that's great.
I'm waiting for the day.
And then the next part, because timing is more of the essence here, because of the program, because of the dates. I mean, we have a motion that's just before us to receive, but I would suggest that we would add to that or amend the motion, and it's moved by Councillor Back and seconded by Councillor Guido, to receive the presentation. But I may suggest that we add a general support, again, that council support, collaboration with Theatre 3x60 and Kerry Nicholson, and that staff continue to work with Theatre 3x60 on the best way to move forward with this, with the support. Just looking at staff to see if that's encompassing enough, just to make sure it doesn't stop, and working on whether it can be half-days, working with the town halls, just to make sure you've got the support of council, move forward with it, and obviously, if it's within what we've talked about, then that's captured. So I'm looking at Councillor Back as the mover, and Councillor Guido, is that fine? And Director Newman, does it capture everything? Okay. So any questions on that as amended? No? All right. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. So thank you very much for that, and thank you for enriching our community.
Thank you, and I'll make sure you all get to see us this summer.
Thank you. Okay, next up we have Marina Brock, Chair of Scugog Heritage and Museum Advisory Committee, with the 2017 accomplishments and 2018 work plan, and Mr. Dan Stone is accompanying as backup and support. And
thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, councilors, and staff.
I'm Marina Brock, the new chair of the Skewog Heritage and Museum Committee. Dan Stone, who is former chair for the past 6 years, has handed over the reins to me to continue his amazing work with the committee. So I would like to take this opportunity to thank Dan for his last 6 years in steering this committee forward. We've accomplished a lot, as you can see from our report, and we're very proud to continue. You're very welcome. I guess I'd like to highlight a few of our accomplishments from 2017. I know you're aware of many of them. We spent a lot of time in 2017 as a committee putting forth recommendations to council to designate properties of heritage significance. Specifically, we spent a little bit of time on cemeteries. We thought that was very important to get working on cemeteries. We started looking at community halls, and we really, if you noticed, we put quite a few properties forward for designation. In order to do that as well, in order to not go straight to designation, we thought it was very important to improve our municipal register. Dan and I spent a lot of time with Erica, the summer student from last year. We identified over 200 significant properties, and we took a look at them. We did drive-bys, we wrote notations on their significance, and we used Erica's expertise to do some research on them, and we added 200 properties to the register, which I think is quite an accomplishment in 1 year. We also, with staff, which was excellent, we worked on simplifying the policy and procedures on how to identify the properties and get them onto that register. So we improved that process and simplified it. Of course, you probably all are aware, we spent a lot of time on the grant program for the Heritage Conservation. We reviewed applications, and we approved applications for 2 projects in the first, 2 in the second, and 1 in the third intake. So that, we will see the fruition of that. We approved Hank's building. The beautiful parapets that were installed, were restored as a part of that program. And if you noticed, Michael Kaplansky's porch, the beautiful porch on that heritage building has now been unveiled, and it's lovely. So those are 2 very significant projects, and hopefully in 2018 you'll see the results of the remaining projects. Other contributions that you do visibly see around the HCD district are the plaque program, the Heritage Plaque Program. And we did, there's one at a residence of 177 Cochrane, and we're working on 100 Perry Street, and we approved that grant. So, going forward to 2018, we have a very ambitious work plan, as you may have read. We are going to continue to move properties from the inventory to the register, and as a matter of fact, today Dan and I went out and we did 3 additional hamlets. We completed Greenbank, Epsom, and Utica, on going around visually looking at properties, making our notations, and then we will submit that for further research. So we're always working hard at continuing our agenda. Dan really worked hard at liaising with other committees, and we are doing that every month. We are liaising with the BIA, of course, with the Waterfront Steering Committee very specifically to let them know, looking at the old mill, on what from a heritage perspective is the committee can do, what they can't do, what we will approve. And we are also working with accessibility. So we hope to continue with that, because I think that is very, very important to make sure that the heritage is interwoven in all mandates of all committees in the Skewog Township. Another thing that is more project-based, which is very important, is we want to take that municipal register of properties and we want to digitize it and get that on the internet so that all of the taxpayers of Skewog can see our register, and they can see our heritage value statements, and I think that's really important, so it becomes part of the public domain. And lastly, we're also going to integrate, Peter Hvidston has a wonderful a wonderful website full of photographs of heritage in Skugog, and we'd like to implement that and integrate that into Skugog's website. And we're going to be working with staff, with Lori Bowers and group, to really try to get a strategy so that we can merge the two sites. And so Heritage gets a strong section of the Skugog website. And that's Heritage in a nutshell.
Excellent. Thank you for the update, and thank you for all the hard work, taking on the responsibility of chair. I know that you have some big shoes to fill, and as I passed you guys in Tim Hortons today at lunch, I'm sure that Dan is only a arm's length away from anything for the responsibilities with chair. But you know, we know the Heritage Committee is very active, is a very large work plan, as you can see from the staff report as well, that is later on in the agenda. But on behalf of council, staff, residents, thank you for volunteering all your time and expertise and preserving our heritage, because it's such an important part of our history and our future. So thank you.
Thank you. I would also like to take this opportunity, if I could, just to mention and to thank Christy Harrison, our administrator for our committee. She has done a fabulous job for us this year, specifically in just keeping us organized, up to date, helping us create tables and communicating back to staff. And I think that we've come a long way with our communication and with our organization because of Christy. So I'd like to put that thank you out to her as well.
We'll make sure she gets that. And I also want to congratulate you on your new member, which was appointed today. I don't know, David Leroy has been appointed to the committee, so that was just at the beginning of our open session today. So
thank you.
All right, start off with Councillor Drew. Questions?
Thank you, and congratulations on all your successes last year. Really appreciate it. Look forward to 2018 and hearing what's in store. And I just learned yesterday that the Port Perry United Church was not able to do their tower that they got approval for last year. What happens now? Do they have to reapply, or can they go ahead? Their person let them down and did not do the project, or did not show up, or whatever. What happens now with that?
I did speak with Paul Griffin about that, and I do understand that happened as well, and just was made aware of that. I think that we don't have any proper process or any specific process, but I think that is something very important that we build into the program. But I think we'll give them the update. They were already vetted. They already went through the approval process, so I think that they will be allowed to apply in 2018.
So they have to reapply?
Probably. I'll have to discuss that with staff and with the committee and see how we go forward with that. But I think that it's a very worthy project, and we need to add that to the program, because, as we know, that just sometimes certain projects just do not go through due to contracting issues or what have you. And I'd like to create, and I think we would, some sort of a mechanism to add that to our program, to go back a little in an easier fashion. You don't have to go through the whole process.
Yeah, that'd be good. Thank you.
Before I go any further, I had the work plan presentation to be received, moved by Councillor Back. I needed a seconder for that, Councillor Kett. Next up, I had Councillor Kett.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm a little bit disappointed when I look through the work plan that there isn't a little more about the museum, because I know that was talk at from the committee meetings. So I would like to have something integrated into the plan, a definite target for the museum. I know the representative sits through our meetings I'd like to have just a little something in there at least about the museum. The other thing I wanted to mention was the dollars from the church, from the grant program, haven't been spent. Is that right?
They've been allocated to that project, but not spent. No.
So, does that go with our program that nothing goes, like, is it a reserve for that program? Because I'm not sure that we have definite timelines. Does it have to be completed within a year of the...
It changed.
initially, it was a year from the date that it was approved.
Oh, Dan, your microphone's not on.
Oh. Good? So, originally, it was a year from the date it was approved, and staff changed it to a calendar year. So, I don't know where the church is in the calendar year, and as you know more about your budget process than we do, but I believe if you don't do your project, the budget money is taken away. I don't think it's put in reserve.
Yeah.
I'm correct on that? So
No, I'm not sure, I'll ask.
You know what,
in a second.
yeah, so just ask Director of Finance to comment on it, because he's...
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So I believe when the Heritage Program first started, there were no deadlines in place, and staff reviewed it. There were deadlines put in place because we don't want to keep a project open indefinitely. We'd like to be able to have a start and finish. So I believe that's why the 1 year, calendar year was put on there. Then the money every year is put through the capital budget, so I think in our long-range capital forecast, it was identified that $30,000 was put forward for the next 5 years. This depends on council approval every year, but, so the amounts that were set aside last year are still available. We'd have to see timing on that. The new ones that came forward in 2018, the 2018 year budget are the calendar year.
So just to clarify that one, the deadline, the one that was not utilized, it is subject to the deadline, or was it grandfathered because it was before the deadline was, deadlines were changed? I'm just...
I'd have to speak to staff on that. I guess it depends if it is still a viable project that will be finished within this calendar year, 18, it can likely go through. But I wouldn't want to keep a 17 project open into 19 or 20.
Because it's same as you approve something at the end of 2017, you wouldn't expect it to be done by the year 2017, it would be the calendar following year.
The end of 17 for 18.
Right.
So this project is from 16.
Right.
Yeah.
So if there is something that the committee wants to bring forward or have, if they are going to be speaking with staff as they indicated, then I would imagine something would come through that we could support and make sure that if there was an exception to be made or something that, because of the timing and the changes, that it could be dealt with through a resolution.
Yes, because I believe the 2016 amount was about 60,000? No, 30? 30. But there were 3 intakes, so the last intake came at the end of the year, so there's no way they'd be able to finish it, so it's still an open capital account at this point.
Councilor Cat?
Sorry, would you go over that again?
So I believe that the project that they're referring to was a project that was from the 2016 capital budget. But there were 3 intakes for that capital budget, which they're still completing. The new budget coming forward has new rules. The new Heritage grant has new rules that it has to be done within the calendar year. But the one that was approved in 2016 did not have that stipulation.
And was it 2016 or 2017? Was it the beginning of 17?
I believe, sorry, you're right, I think it was 17.
So
17
basically,
budget.
anything that was approved before the beginning of this year is okay?
Yes.
All right, yeah,
Yeah.
so there's an answer to Councilor Drew as well.
Yeah.
May I say, the calendar year is somewhat problematic because we're doing the intakes right now, and really the people in the Heritage Conservation District are probably enjoying themselves in Florida. So if someone applies in July, they can't finish it by December. My personal thought is if it's a year to when it's approved, is a much better thing. I know maybe it's hard on the books, but we're not going to be able to fill the 30,000 this year. Mr. Mitchell has applied from last year, and it's been put over to this year, and I believe he's the only one that's applied, and the deadline is next week or something.
I think it's passed.
So the calendar year, I don't think is going to work, just my thoughts. The museum, may I speak to that? You asked about the museum?
Yes, I
Councilor
did.
Kett, may I speak to that? As chair for 6 years, I tried to incorporate the museum into the Heritage Committee as much as possible, but it didn't work. We ended up, basically Shannon, the archivist, would give us a report, and that's all that we did. The people in the committee are mainly interested in the Conservation District and the heritage of Skewog as a whole, and Shannon had to report to us to get grant money for the museum. And I tried, and my thought is that the museum component of our committee is just not well served. In our February meeting coming up, Mr. Arcus, a designate from the Historical Society, is going to come as a designation and ask that under the new council next year, that the museum be split off, and perhaps there's enough interest as there was in the past, that there's members of the Historical Society and members of the general public, there's enough interest there that it could become a standalone, because basically, as we know, we've been moving along with Heritage and we have no clue, because I met with the mayor and Mr. O'Rourke about this. We have no clue what is actually going on in the museum, so I feel they're not being well served, so that's hopefully what will happen is they'll split off under the new council.
Well, through the mayor, and I understand that because I'm at every meeting, but it won't really matter to, right now, what's going to happen with the next council. So I'm just wondering if there's something we could just put in there, just into our work plan to...
Well, I tried for 6 years, and I just don't know what we can do to better serve. Mr. Belfry is going to attend meetings probably for the rest of the term of this council to bring us up to speed. I've volunteered to help vet some of the material that's being archived that I feel shouldn't be, and Shannon does too, but under their plan now, they're archiving things that are very little relevance, and it's using up a lot of volunteer time. So we are trying. Do you have any suggestions?
Not right now, but I guess the next meeting we'll be able to.
I'm with you.
Thank you.
Councilor Watt.
Well, personally, I'm a little disturbed by that, because that's part of the mandate of this, of your committee, is that to support, promote, and encourage all aspects of operations and development of the museum and archives. And I know you have a very strong committee, and I would hope that somehow your committee could help guide how you could be helping them support and promote this. I mean, when you say that I know you've tried for 6 years, but I'm not sure that making it a standalone committee will solve the problem. That's based on what you've just said.
We've just had a meeting with the mayor in this regard. I don't think maybe I should go into the nature of that. But going forward, we are going to make an effort more on staff's part than our committee, because as you know, we're volunteers, and we cannot help the museum unless we have information, basically. So we've moved to change that in our February meeting, and believe me, as previous chair, I've done everything that I think that a volunteer chair can do to serve the museum. But we have explored the museum being put under Park and Recreation, I think, to better serve them, and that didn't work. Staff said that wouldn't work. So Mr. Arculus, as you know, is going to make a deputation to see what we feel should be done to better serve the museum and perhaps have a standalone committee. I think there's probably enough interest in the community because there used to be a standalone committee, and because of some political problems, our committees were joined about 2 councils ago. We're certainly open to any kind of suggestions.
If I could add to that, just from a housekeeping point of view, our committee is very active now, and we tend to run over, even in our meetings, we have, I think, approximately 10 a year, and it just, we can't get to all all of the detail. The museum needs a lot of detail. They need to know a little bit more about caretaking of buildings, and and their archives, and you would need a separate meeting of 2 hours times 8 for that particular committee, just to get to the detail that they require, I believe.
Okay, so appreciating all that and respecting how hard you've tried to make it work. What happens to that if there is not going to be a standalone committee then? What do you see if you know, your efforts have failed? Say Paul Arculus does his deputation, and there isn't a cry or a call-out, an answer to the call-out for a standalone committee. What then will happen with the museum? In your opinion, how do you see that unfolding?
May I speak?
Yes, please.
I've thought about this, and obviously, the museum would be welcomed back, for sure, under our umbrella. I think perhaps with a little bit more liaison between staff and our committee from a report basis, that maybe we could offer more suggestions, but as it stands now, we've had only the curator's report, and that's it, and which caused a problem in the community, as some people may know, a big problem, and we've resolved that, and going forward, we will make an effort, but we need information to come to us before we can help.
And I'm not sure if this would work, but I know that with economic development, they created a working committee to bring information to the Economic Development Committee for Tourism. So, and I'm just throwing it out there, has that ever been considered for the heritage?
The township has gone through the process of shrinking committees and subcommittees, and we've had...
Well, this would be a working group, not a committee per se. It would not have staff
an ad hoc thing.
So on and so forth. And it would bring maybe possibly would address some of the things you're not getting that you need to
what we have now is the Smiths are working to advocate the mill. We have a photographer who is volunteering to digitize our inventory or our designated properties, and perhaps we could have a similar volunteer group that represented the museum that could work on their own and then come and give a presentation. I just don't know how you set that up.
So that was actually, and I just want to add to Councillor Watton, is what I was going to say before we leave that track of that, is they don't have to be members of the committee to be part of a subcommittee, like they could be reporting back to, so all the legwork is done by this volunteer group, and if you're suggesting Paul Arculus and the Historical Society members and all that, it'd be a great way to test to see how it works, where's the gaps need to be filled, and if they're willing to help fill that or start a skeleton type of advisory committee, then it could feel like we're giving the attention, the well-deserved attention to the museum that's needed. So I'm just agreeing with Councillor Watton.
Truly, it is not well-served, truly.
But if you've got interested parties that are talking about next term council, why wait till next term council? I agree with Councillor Kett, is like, now we have interested, let's see how this could unfold and not add on extra work. So, Councillor Watton, you didn't mean to...
Go ahead.
Just like you guys, I can go around the circle too, trying to find it.
So that's, I was verifying with the clerk that is plausible, it meets the mandate, the terms, like checks off the boxes, so I would suggest just for procedures, double check with that.
And just to ask, how will we go about doing that? Because with the Smiths, I was able to meet them in my daughter's restaurant, and they said, can I advocate? And I said, sure, come through our committee, but I don't know how to go out there.
I suggest have a
Through my
one-on-one
chair.
with Chair and yourselves, and Mr. Clerk can make sure everything's on side, and I don't think it's terribly too difficult to follow through, and then you can have it ready for, one of the upcoming agendas and have it transferred. Councillor Back?
Thank you, through the chair. One of the main issues I can see with a subcommittee or a working group, currently the museum is part of the heritage because they require to be part of an advisory committee to council in order to receive grants. So they must be part of a committee, but really they do not mesh, and I think part of the problem is you have professionals with regards to archiving, and the two full-time staff there have significant education with regards to museums and all the artifacting, as well as the volunteers that work there. But I think it's also, you have its staff and staff properties and employees. How can you have an advisory committee overseeing that? That, to me, is a problem. I don't think we have any other committee that oversees or would recommend to council things that are staff-driven. So I really do think in the future the museum has to be on its own. You have the heritage main body, which are people that are passionate and actively involved in preserving our downtown heritage district, which is private ownership, as well as actively trying to preserve, hopefully, and saving our heritage homes, which we really need to liaison and do a lot of public information on homeowners to know if you designate your home, what the parameters are, and it's not as a hindrance as people think it is. So I think that's where the direction the Heritage Committee needs to go. And the museum is all sorts of fantastic programs and artifacts and buildings, which really it's a beast of its own, so to speak, and it needs to have its own committee, I think, to be valid for its grants, but also to have people really helping with Mr. Belfry and our curator to make it as good as it can be.
And my suggestion, or just bringing the thought around, is it's too late in this term. We're not going to be making those changes, but to actually have it kind of piloted or tested, for the next term of council, to have that subcommittee there, I think that would be a way to give the attention and the voice for it. And
may I ask Mr. Belfry if it's a subcommittee or a working group? Would that jeopardize any grants?
It'd be a working group, and that's why I was suggesting to go over with the clerk the exact proper way to set it up. If you're moving on that direction, it would be through the clerks who's formalize the term. So, okay, I don't want to keep going around this because it'll be up to the committee and to probably set that up if they're deciding to go that direction. I had Councillor Drew that wanted to speak to something.
I was just going to make the exact point that you made, Mr. Mayor. I think it's late in this term, and we've already had a lot of conversation about committee structure, and we've passed it. I think it's an opportunity to have this working group reporting to the Heritage and Museum Committee. I would ask Mr. Belfry if that jeopardizes any grants, but in my feeling it may not be. But I would suggest that we give it a lot of thought over the next, the remaining months of this term, and maybe make some changes one way or the other for the next term of council. So I'd like an answer on the grant situation.
Through the mayor to the councilors, excuse me, the grant the Ontario provincial grant, we get a community museum operating grant of approximately $20,000 a year. That grant's contingent on the museum having a governing body. So that's why back in the day, the museum was merged with the Heritage Committee to maintain that governing body. So a working group per se wouldn't work. It'd have to be some kind of assigned by council committee to oversee the museum. In an advisory committee, it would work as its own advisory committee.
So just to clarify that, what we're talking about is have a working group, it still stays as part of the Heritage Museum Committee, but just a working group to do the legwork with the Historical Society, et cetera, so that it's not part of the agenda, it'll be more of an update part of the agenda, and
As long as there's a governing body that makes decisions or recommends decisions to council, at the end of the day, that's fine. If the working group is then making recommendations to the advisory committee, which then would recommend.
yeah. So I would suggest the conversation continue on with Mr. Belfry and Mr. Newman, and then decide on how you want to move forward with it. But that way, I think it gets us between now and next term council, and then you also have, you know, the history, the experience of saying, yes, this is going to work, and follow along. Obviously, the grants is an important part we want to make sure we keep, so. Any other members of council speaking to this? Seeing none, moved to be the report to receive. Thank you very much for the update, and all those in favor? Carried. Thank you very much. Thanks. Next item is the consent agenda. I need a mover and a seconder for the consent agenda. Moved by Councillor Guido, seconded by Councillor Drew. I have a couple polls here. 9.2.5, which is the election signs by Councillor Guido. Councillor Back has pulled 9.3.1, Chamber of Commerce weekend staffing. Any other polls? Seeing none. All the items, except those being pulled, are to be endorsed as recommended or received. All those in favor? Carried. Next is 9.2.5. Councillor Guido has, there's a piece of paper that's sent out here, so would you like to move the recommendation with removing it with these additions?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move them.
Seconder for that, Councillor Somerville. You want to speak to it?
Sure. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. A question was directed to our clerk this morning regarding the placement of election signs in looking at the potential new bylaws for placement of election signs. It does not permit a candidate, if they are running for a ward outside of where they reside, to place a sign on their residence. As an example, should I determine to run in the next election with the ward boundary review, my ward actually starts the other side of 7A, and according to the policy that we would have in place, I wouldn't be able to put any election signs on my own property for myself. So through discussions with the clerk, he has provided us all with an amended motion that would now allow to have that on your primary residence.
I think that was an interesting point. I have not seen that in any other municipalities adjustment, but I do think that that is a good amendment to that. So I just wanted to make sure that, to be clear, the recommended motion was election signs be received, and that the election signs bylaw, including as attachment 1 to report Corp 2018-02, be approved and brought forward for adoption, and that corporate 2018-02 elections, never mind, sorry, I read that, and that an exemption be added to the election signs bylaw permitting a candidate to place election signs on their principal place of residence regardless of the ward in which the candidate is running, and that the election signs bylaw as amended and largely included as attachment 1 to report Corp 2018-02 be approved and brought forward for adoption. So just to be clear, it is paragraph 1 that the election signs be received, paragraph 2 is the amendment that was put forward, and that the paragraph 3 is the election signs bylaw is amended and largely included as attachment 1 be approved and brought forward for adoption. Butchered that one really well. So questions on that? Councillor Watt and then Councillor Mack.
Well, not specifically on that motion, but I'm just wondering where those that are in a rural countryside and live on a farm and their property is bound by township roads on all sides, will they now have to put their signs in the cornfield?
Well,
Yes, on your property, but if your house is way back from the road, such as mine, where would you put it? Well, you have to put it behind the field, in the field.
Or, yeah, the driveway going into the...
I'm just asking, I don't know that it's much rural consideration was given to this. I'm asking for how that would look.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you to council. Provided that the sign is on private property, that's the only place where election signs would be permitted under this bylaw if council approve it. So it would take away the township road allowances, yes, but if it's on private property, regardless of where that private property is, rural or urban, it would be permitted on private property under the proposed bylaw.
That's my point exactly. That means some councillors may have to be putting them in a cornfield. Because if a house is far back, and I'm just thinking of my property, even though I'm on a regional road, so probably if I run, it wouldn't be affected. But I don't know where you could put it unless you put it in the field. That is private property.
Councillor Beck?
Thank you. Question to the clerk. I do have a couple others. What is the actual distance from the road and onto the sort of boulevard, so to speak, of municipal on a property?
Can't put it on the road.
Yep, through the mayor, on Township Road, where we have jurisdiction, is 66 feet wide, unless it's a higher level road. Sometimes they're a little wider, but I think generally you could say 33 feet from the center line, it will get you to the property boundary.
So in theory, on a farm, and as the mayor said, a driveway, 33 feet from the middle of the road is where you can erect the sign, not necessarily in the middle of a cornfield.
Can't do it on the roadside.
I said 33, did you say meters or feet? Feet from the center of the road onto your property. That's, outside of that is your property. So your driveway, measured 34 feet from the center of the road, is where you can erect the sign. Correct?
Which might not apply to a regional road or a provincial highway, which is sometimes wider, but on a township road, that's correct. And I think the discussion has been, or the motion, just want to make sure we understand the motion Councillor Guido brought forward was, she's planning to run and will be outside of her ward, or considering running, I should say, I'm sorry. Her discussion is she's considering running, and and she'll be outside her ward, and so she was just wanted to make sure, of course, that she could put a sign on her own property. That's the subject of the change that we're talking about. Just want to make sure everyone understood that. Otherwise, the bylaw is saying that signage is not permitted on township right-of-ways.
Or roads.
Yeah, right-of-ways,
Right.
roads, all the
Anything.
same, that's right.
Anything.
But would be permitted subject to the region's bylaw on region road or provincial highways. Yes, the way the bylaw is worded is that signs would not be permitted on township right-of-ways, only on private property, but it still allows them on regional roads or provincial roads as long as they're in accordance with their bylaws and rules.
And I just wanted to add to it, I think intent behind this is it takes away a lot of the strains during the election on bylaw officers, et cetera, and the regions already had a discussion on the roads and timing, and the municipality, it takes the brunt of all of the signage and also the amount of signs that get erected out there. So we are, dissected by couple provincial highways, major ones, and then also many, the regional roads, so there's still gonna be a significant amount of signs that are gonna be not on private property, but it's just, on the municipal roads, so. Councillor Back, you said you had more questions?
Thank you. Through the mayor, on page 39, section 2.2, the general regulations, so where it says, no election signs being placed on township property include township-owned road allowances, what are parking spots on the road? Are they considered township property?
Yes, sorry, through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, that would be correct.
So if we have a car that has a sign on it parked on Perry Street or Queen Street or in any township parking spot with either a car wrapped or a sign in the window, what happens there? And what are the penalties if you have a car parked every day on a township spot?
Under the proposed, through you, Mr. Mayor, under the proposed bylaw, that would not be permitted. The vehicle wrap sign, there's a specific section on that within the bylaw. The vehicle wrap sign would be considered an election sign like any other election sign. It would have to be on private property, except when it's on a highway and using the highway for driving purposes from getting one place to the other, and that's within there. So if you're driving, if you have a vehicle wrap and you're driving on the highway, that's permitted, subject to any other bylaws or laws, but in terms of parking the where that vehicle stops, it would have to be on private property.
So if they park on Queen Street or Perry Street or any other significant visible area repeatedly, what is the consequences? Is it in here what the consequences are? Will it be towed? Will they be ticketed?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to council, so my first step is always going to be to look for compliance. So I would contact that candidate or third-party advertiser and advise them of the rules and let them know that they are not permitted to park there or not permitted to place their election sign there, and ask them for compliance. So that would be step number one. Step number two would then follow through with charges. You know, I would obviously just hope for compliance. City of Pickering went through a very long court case on this exact topic with regards to vehicle wraps. So I'm hoping that having those provisions in there, and I took those provisions from the City of Pickering as well, that would satisfy that, and hopefully we don't get in the same situation, but compliance is always the first step.
Okay, and on page 40, 2.4, what happens if there are signs on a car or advertisement, be it social media or in a print media, and it doesn't display the registered third-party person?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to council, same process. We'd be looking for compliance first. That sign and that provision with regards to having the name, address, phone number, contact information for third-party advertisers is specified within the Municipal Elections Act itself. So again, we would look for compliance first. Those third-party advertisers have to register with me if they're going to be advertising within this municipality. So when they register, we'll obviously be providing them with the election sign bylaw, for instance, and making sure that they fully understand what is required of them. So again, compliance is always first step.
But what happens if a person advertises or puts on social media, in a sense, it's quite easy to do social media advertising very cheaply and without permission of a clerk? How do you ask for compliancy if you don't know who the person is?
If I don't know who the person is, I'd probably forward it to the police and for them to do an investigation.
So is that with regards to elections, is that a federal offense?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it's provincial legislation.
Provincial, okay, so hopefully that will be put out there for people to know, because it's very easy to set up Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, It's quite easy to do without not knowing who the person is. With regards to our media, what happens if the same? Will the media be ensuring that any ad that's placed, are they going to ensure, because it's revenue for them for ads, are they obligated under the Provincial Act for any third-party advertisement that it must say who it's from?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to council, sorry, just to answer your first question in regards to social media, you're only a third-party advertiser if it costs you money. So that's one of the provisions that the province has put on what a third-party advertiser is. So if you're setting up a social media account, Facebook, Instagram, whatever it may be, and simply just saying, vote for this person or don't vote for this person, that's not a third-party advertiser. So I would have no, recourse to notify that person for anything. In terms of your question with regards to the media now has, all broadcasters now have responsibilities under the Municipal Elections Act, and in fact this come up just last week with, as a part of my regional clerk's meeting, is that a letter will be drafted to, from the clerk, essentially from each municipality, to our broadcasters, to our media outlets, stating these are your requirements now under the Act, and we'll obviously make that as widely known as possible, because the provincial government put that in place, and now it's up to us to make sure everyone knows what those rules are. So we'll draft a letter and have those sent to as many people as we can.
Okay, and that's good to know. And then just know too, though, that with social media, the sponsored does cost money, so hopefully there'll be some oversight in that. Number 2.6 on the same page, if there are signs in the wrong area that are non-compliance, is it $20 per sign or $20 per occurrence? So if bylaw has to pick one sign, or on the same day have to pick 10 signs from that candidate, is it $20 per sign or that day?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the councillor, it'll be per sign. However, again, I would look for compliance first, and if an election sign is not placed in the correct location and it comes to my attention, my first step would be to contact that candidate and say, this sign in this location is not in the appropriate location, please have it moved. And, there would be a period of time that I would allow for that to happen. However, if it's not after I notify, removed, and the township has to remove it, that's when it'd be $20 per sign.
Okay, and one more. With regards, because this was an occurrence that happened way too often in the last election, is there going to be anything communicated to the public with regards to unlawfully removing candidate signs from properly allowed? Just say, for instance, on private property allowed by individuals and other individuals removing those? Because I know that is a provincial offense.
Through Mr. Mayor to council, section 10.6 of the bylaw specifically speaks to vandalizing of signs. It's not something that we would get involved with. That'd be a police matter. So if someone is vandalizing or illegally sort of moving signs, then that would be something you'd have to contact, the candidate would have to contact the police about. We wouldn't enforce that. If this bylaw is passed as is, and it's required, signs are only allowed, election signs are only allowed on private property, then candidates would have to get the permission of the private property owner to put them there in any case. So hopefully that would be satisfied in that, yes, the private property owner is not going to move them because they already have given permission to the candidate to put the signs there. A little bit different, of course, we still have regional roads and provincial roads that candidates can put their, and TPAs can put their signs up on. But no, it's not something that we can really do anything about, unfortunately, me as a clerk, but certainly it could become a police matter.
Okay, back to Councillor Watton. Sorry about that.
Okay, so on page 39, just what election sign owners' information to be displayed? What information needs to be displayed? Under 2.2.
The election sign owner information will just generally be like a phone number. I mean, if it's a candidate, it's different to whether it's a third-party advertiser. Candidates will obviously have their name on the sign because that's the whole point of the sign, is to promote them. So they'll have their name there, and they'll maybe add likely a phone number of some description. Third-party advertisers are required under the Act to have their name, telephone number, who they're registered with, and, well, contact information, telephone number, address, email address, that information. So it's different for each type.
So if I were a candidate and it's my election sign, what do I need on that for information?
Just looking at the section. So section 3.3 just says that
I said section 2.2, Mr. Clerk, sorry.
Yeah, I apologize. I'm looking at the bylaw, section 3.3. It says name and contact information. So essentially that would be any contact information, whether it be phone number, email address, actual address, I guess, if you'd like. It's up to you.
It's up to me, or I need all of that on there?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to council. It says contact information, so the candidate can decide what contact information they put on there. It simply says contact information. So if you decide to put phone number, that's fine. If you decide to put an email address, that's fine. If you decide to put an address, that's fine. It simply says contact information for the election sign owner.
So this is this a new regulation that we as a council are deciding on, or is this a regulation that has come from higher above?
In terms of candidates, it's within the township bylaw. Third-party advertisers are required by the provincial legislation.
Okay, so this is a new bylaw that we as council are going to decide. Basically, I'm not talking third-party. I'm just talking about what we want more information on our signs. We can put them on regional and provincial, but not in certain areas and following their rules. We can't put them really on any concession roads for those of us that are rural, unless it's on private property. And I'm envisioning my ward. There's many rural roads, many concession roads, and unless I can put it on their fence, I'm not sure that that's going to work for a candidate that's running in a ward that is primarily rural. And so and I'm not clear based on the report, Mr. Clerk, what changes need to be implemented and what changes are being implemented by this council.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you to council. Election signs are the responsibility of the municipality. So you're implementing the changes with the passing of an election sign bylaw.
Okay, next, Councillor Drew.
No, my questions were asked.
Okay, Councillor Somerville, do you have any hand up?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, first of all, this is very difficult for us in the rural areas to display our election signs, especially when we have to do rural roads, and these will be township roads. And I have to agree with Councillor Watton on that, because I have a huge amount of rural roads, and I think I might have maybe 4 regional roads and maybe 1 Queens Highway. I really find this very difficult to go through, because I'm with her on this, because there's no road allowance. If we can't put it on the road allowance, then where do we put it? On up against the cornfield? That would be what I'd have to be going into the swamp and putting it into the swamp, because there's no area that you can put it on a township road unless you put it on the township road allowance. I can handle the regional road and I can handle the Queens Highway, because that's okay. But when you get into township property, there's no way you can put signs without having to put it on a road allowance. You can put it in people's driveways, but then it has to go 33 feet into their driveway. So of what value is that wasting a sign, putting it, if they live a way up, of what value is that? That's my number one question. My number two question is, do you want to answer that question perhaps first, because I have more questions. I have number two question coming up.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through to Councillor. I'm not going to comment on what value election sign is to a candidate or isn't, because I really don't know.
So where do we put them? Where do you feel that we should put them on a township road?
Again, I'm not going to advise on where candidates should put their election signs.
So we don't put them on anywhere then, if that's the case? But if that's the case, because we can't put them, if we can't put them in the road allowance, then we can't put them on the township roads. And unless we put them up their driveway, which would be 33 feet up their driveway.
It's not 30 feet up the driveway, it's
From the center of the
center
road.
line. Center
From
line,
the center
right?
of the road. I understand that. But that's still up their driveway somewhere. It's even on my, well, I'm fine because I live on a township, or a regional road. My second question is, who's going to patrol for these signs?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through to Councillor. No one's going to patrol. It'll be on a complaint basis.
Okay. All right. That would be cool. I want to know, too, if it's a regional road, and we have mayors and regional councilors and councilors that are putting their signs on the regional road. What is your distance between each sign?
That you'd have to look at the regional sign bylaw, which I don't have with me right now, but that's a regional bylaw requirement, and we'd have to look at the regional sign bylaw.
Can people put their signs into windows, in their house windows, or their, it says condominiums and apartments, but what about houses? And you said also businesses are in there, but what about a house?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through to Council. If it's on private property, then it would be allowed under the proposed bylaw. So, as you know, this hasn't passed yet. So, under the proposed bylaw, if it's on private property, it would be allowed. The reference to condominiums, corporations, that is specific from the Municipal Elections Act. So that is under the Municipal Elections Act that they have to allow tenants at their properties to display election signs and to allow candidates to come and campaign on those properties. So that's specific to the Municipal Elections Act, that section.
Okay, now, we have a regional road meeting a township road. And so the township road has a road allowance, and the regional road has a road allowance. So where do we draw the boundary line as to where we can put it on that, the township line versus the regional road line?
So you'd put it on the regional road, and the regional bylaw has some daylighting triangle measurements within there that it can't be right at the corner either. So again, you just follow the regional bylaw in terms of sign placement.
So there's no township bylaw on that one. You can put it, like the township doesn't come right up, there's no angle that this is township over here and this is regional. You can put it within, you can't put it within that township township road allowance.
Under the proposed bylaw, and if it's passed as is, no. In terms of the regional road, you have to follow the regional bylaw. So depending on how far that bylaw says to have it back from, say, the intersection itself, you just have to follow that regional bylaw with regards to election signs. But if the current township bylaw passes as is, you couldn't put it on the township road.
No, I know that, but I'm just trying to figure out where the boundary line is between the regional road and the township road. Whether it's an angle or whether it's the road allowance goes right straight back to where the fence line is. So, anyways, those are my questions. Thank you.
And I think, Councillor Somerville, the conversation unfolded at the regional council about the spacing between signs on regional roads, and I believe it was 400 feet. Same thing as not having succession of them on regional roads, but on private property, it obviously wouldn't apply. So it doesn't matter if private property is on regional or on municipality. You had, you know, in, say, Green Bank town, if there were people, that wouldn't matter about the spacing, but on the regional road, there's the spacing requirement in that bylaw. But just like when we were going through the election, I had the provincial bylaw, signed bylaw, the regional one, and the municipal one. They were all different. This one is trying to align quite a bit of the rules, and so now it'll be, I think, easier to follow for the next election.
Do we have a copy of the regional bylaws yet?
I think you have to go to the individual sites, but I'm trying to think if it's part of the package. Is there one in the binders that'll be planned on?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through to council. I can provide you one after this meeting, if you'd like it now. All bylaws or policies with regards to signs will be a part of the candidate booklet that each candidate receives and third-party advertisers receive. So if you become a candidate, then you'll receive all of that information along with a whole binder worth of information as well.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions on this first-time speakers? Councillor Guido?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to further clarify, I think what Councillor Watton was asking, if for a councillor's election sign, or a candidate for a councillor, if we just want to include just our name, not an email address or a phone number, is that sufficient? Is that considered contact information?
Under the current provisions of the proposed bylaw, no.
No.
It says name and contact information.
All right. So everyone will need new signs.
Councillor Watton?
I just wondered what the difference from the previous bylaw and this one. It would have been helpful to see what all the changes are that we have to decide on.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through to council. I can say that it's, honestly, the whole thing is new, because under the current provisions of the election sign bylaw, which in our sign bylaw, there was, I think, 2 sections, and that is it. So you can safely assume that most of the information within this proposed bylaw is all new, some of it being legislated within the Municipal Elections Act, and the rest a combination of, bylaws that I reviewed from other municipalities. And some coordination and synchronization with the regional sign bylaw as well.
One final question. Did you drive down any of the rural roads when you created this, or take a look and consider that for rural candidates?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you to council. Yes, I've driven down rural roads before. Did I drive down rural roads in determining this election sign bylaw? Not specifically. I think private property speaks for itself in that private property, whether it's urban or rural, is the same. I would think of a fence line. If I have a fence at the front of my property, then there's my private property, and I can put signs there. Wherever you like. The fence is considered yours. So, yeah. So then, private property could be private property, wherever it is.
Do you have any more, Councillor Watt? Okay, Councillor Back?
Thank you, and the clerk just touched on it. So if you are on a farm, and most farms have fences, can you not put the sign on said fence?
On the inside or the outside?
It's a fence line. I would think the fence is completely 100% on the person's property, is it not? Unless it's not a proper fence. That's why we have fence sitters. Is that what they're called?
Well, that's to make the adjustment.
Viewers. Pardon me?
What fence sitters is
We have a lot of fence sitters here. Okay, so just say this is my fence, and it's a wired fence, road. I put my rivets, or whatever, on this side of my property. And in fact, I would think for a rule...
So you have to go like this.
No. What's the difference of having it in a ditch or having it elevated 4 feet? I think sight is a little bit better vantage point on the top part of a fence, is it not? Maybe I...
Because your fence would be running this way, your road's running this way.
Then put it like this. Fence? Why can't you? Put another stick down on your, stick down on your property. Here's your fence. Plunker down there, and it goes with it. I'm just saying,
So,
just
yes.
trying to help, and in addition to that, my house is way the heck up on the hill, nowhere near the road. I'm not gonna put it near my house. I'm gonna put it exactly, if I were to run, I'm not saying I am, 34 feet from the center of the road. That's where I put mine last time. I didn't put it up where my house was, because no one would see it but the birds.
Yeah, so, and I think, because it's complaint-driven, it's for abuse, right? That's when it would be complained about. I support the changes in there. I know there's discussion. I see Councillor Watton's and Councillor Sullivan's points about rural, because as mayor, I put signs every square inch of this municipality. I know it's very large, so I put them in both wards, and it's significant. However, I also think that it means quite a bit when you have your sign on private property, and this isn't stopping that. It's just meaning that that will be on municipal property, the only way to do it, and on municipal roads. So I think this is a good compromise, synchronization between the sign sizes for the region, because that's another alignment. I think that a lot of people do complain about what the municipalities look like when you go from one to the other during the election time, and it just becomes a dog's breakfast of signs all over. And if you have signs that are very meaningful and impactful, I think that it'll be well received by the community. So I support the changes here. I understand the concerns, but until you try it, you're not going to know. So, all right. Any other questions on this matter? Councillor Somerville?
I'll just have one more, thank you, Mr. Mayor, just about the, what can go on an election sign. You've got name and possibly contact number, but you didn't put what you're putting on. What are you running for? Does that just come on with your name?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through to council, that would be up to the candidate. It's not something that I think you have to specify by bylaw, because it doesn't make sense to put a candidate information without where you're running.
Exactly.
Any other questions on this? All right, so the motion as amended by Councillor Guido, and seconded by Councillor Somerville. Any other final questions? Seeing none. All those in favor? Carried. Next item up for, that was pulled was item, Councillor Back, 931, moved by Councillor Back. We need a seconder for that. Councillor Kett. Councillor Back.
Thank you, through the mayor. I just would like to defer this correspondence to the February 12th budget deliberations.
So,
Please.
receive this information and you want to refer to the budget, which it has been already, Mr., did you want to, oh, I thought you were, sure, it doesn't, it has gone to part of the budget already, so you're just doing it again. Is that what you were going to say?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This correspondence has already been provided to the treasurer for budget deliberations in any case. So this is just on there just to be received for information, that's all.
But, Councillor Back, if you know, if that's what you're putting forward, it's just the same as what we did for the other BIA, so you want to change it to refer to the budget, 2018 operating budget, right? Councillor Kett?
Thank you, Mayor. We've already received this letter.
It wasn't received as official correspondence, it was received, communicated, and then given to the treasurer.
It was in one of our,
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you to council. This has not come before council before. This is the first time via email previously, but it's not come before council before.
Okay, so Counselor Back,
So, excuse me, so, are we calling it council or GP&A? Is that not council?
Sorry, I should clarify, through you to council, Mr. Mayor. This has not been put on an agenda of General Purpose Administration Committee, Planning Committee, Affairs Committee, or council prior to tonight. This is the first time it's been brought to council on an agenda. However, it was circulated to council via email only previously and provided to the treasurer for the budget deliberations.
And so, sorry, because I'm sort of confused, because I remember another one from the BIA being put forward as well.
BIA
Together.
brought it forward in their delegation, and we asked them at the meeting to put it in writing, and then we would refer to the budget, so.
So, when the EDAC minutes come forward, would this not come forward with it? It's included in the EDAC, along with the BIA, so...
The correspondence was not in this format at council or GP&A, so this is
Okay.
the process. We're formalizing it here. So if it was presented to...
What
them,
I'm
there's
saying is,
nothing-
like, if it's coming up in the minutes for the EDAC, because I'm not sure exactly which one EDAC it was in, but there was also BIA minutes right beside it, and now this being put forward here. I don't understand why, that's all.
It was given to us as correspondence received at council, requested again to be put on our agenda. We followed that request, and then now this is why we're dealing with it right now. So, all right, so Councillor Cat, do you, since you were seconder of the receipt for information, you accept the amendment to friendly, as a friendly, to be referred to the budget?
Yes, I accept
Yep.
that.
Okay, any other questions on this? All those in favor? Carried. That is the end of the consent agenda, extract items of consent agenda. We're on item 11, notice of motion. Any notice of motion? Seeing none, new business, Councillor Cat?
Thank you, Mayor. I just have a couple of questions. I'm not even sure where to direct it. I'm not sure if it's Director Coleman or not, but we were advised about a year and a half ago with the Gear report to install some bracing in the old mill immediately, and it was a $1,000 item. I'm just wanting to make sure that gets done as soon as possible for safety reasons. And to that note as well, and I'm sorry, I can't remember who responded to, there was a fascia gonna fall off, and it was supposed to be fixed a couple of months ago, and I'm not sure if it was Director Heritage or Director Coleman that got back to me regarding that. It was supposed to be done immediately, but I guess that's not within 3 months. So I just wanted someone to take a look at that.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Heritage is unable to attend today. I do know that he is working on the cross bracing, and I'll have to check into the fascia. I know that he did have staff working on that, and I guess you're saying it is not done yet, so I will follow up with both of those with him.
Thank you, Mayor.
Any other new business? Seeing none, I need a, motion to adjourn. Moved by Councillor Somerville, seconded by moved by Councillor Guido, seconded by Councillor Somerville. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your day.